Hi, this is podcast number 35, and the title is Loretta Young Marries John Louis, who is the designer of the famous Marilyn Monroe dress to the Met Gala. Anyway, on with the podcast. After Loretta's divorce from Tom Lewis, she followed the Catholic Church dictum that even after a divorce, it had to have been married in the Catholic Church. You remain married as long as both continue to live. So Loretta was a very social being. How was she going to stay active with a high-profile social set? John Louis and his wife Maggie came to her rescue. The three of them would attend the various events together. This arrangement worked great for a period of 35 years. Loretta's movie Star Standing opened a lot of doors for invitations. John Louis, one of Hollywood's most celebrated designers, opened others. For Loretta, a big part of why she enjoyed these occasions is because they offered a chance to play dress-up, more often than not, in formal attire. Both Loretta and Maggie had such respect for John's judgment that after they had dressed upstairs, they came downstairs and stood inspection. John often told them to make adjustments, such as simplifying what they wore. An example would be to wear less jewelry rather than more. One time, he told them to switch dresses, and they did so obediently. Now, here is a short biography of John Louis that will explain why his judgment was so valued. He grew up in Paris and then came to the United States as a young man. Eventually, he worked as head designer for Columbia Pictures from 1944 to 1960. He was the first couturier in Hollywood who got a full screen credit. So if you're watching those old Columbia movies, you'll see a whole screen that just says Gowns by John Louis. His most famous works include Rita Hayworth's black satin strapless dress from Gilda, where she sang "Put the Blame on Me." Marlene Dietrich's celebrated beaded stage wear for her cabaret world tours, as well as a sheer sparkling gown that Marilyn Monroe wore when she sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to John F. Kennedy in 1962. Now, the dress was so tight that John's fitter, Elizabeth, is believed to have actually sewn it while Marilyn was wearing it. The idea of a dress being a new color with crystals coating it stunned audiences. It gave the illusion that Monroe was nude, except for discreetly placed rhinestones covering her head to toe. Now, Louis had originally designed a version of this dress for Marlene Dietrich, who wore it in her concert shows. An impressed Monroe asked Dietrich about it, who told her how the dress illusion worked, and sent her to Louis to design a similar dress for the Kennedy appearance. Now, while Dietrich had been seen wearing this version before Monroe, the press coverage surrounding Marilyn's appearance at Madison Square Garden in the gown swept the globe. The dress eventually sold at auction in 2016 for $4.8 million. Now, for over 40 years, John Louis designed clothes for almost every star in Hollywood. Around 60 of his designs appear in movies, and he was eventually nominated for 13 Academy Awards. He won an Oscar for his designs in the solid gold Cadillac. I think that was 1956. Some of his clients included Ginger Rogers, Irene Dunne, Lana Turner. Think of Imitation of Life. Those were John Louis gowns for Lana. Vivien, Joan Crawford, Julie Andrews, Katharine Hepburn, and Judy Garland. He designed Elizabeth Taylor's see-through swimsuit that you see towards the end of Suddenly last summer. So if you saw it, you'll remember it. And the Duchess of Windsor became one of his most famous clients, as well as First Lady Nancy Reagan in the 1980s while she was while they were in the White House. Now, when I first met Loretta in 1918, I wrote this wrong. When I first met Loretta in 1989, Maggie Louise had just died. Before Maggie died, she'd asked Loretta to assume responsibility as John's financial conservator. Maggie had viewed John as a creative genius, but realized early in their marriage that he had no head for business. She subsequently assumed those responsibilities. Her concern was that after her death, some woman would view John as ripe for the pickings and take advantage of him financially. Now, for the first 2 years after Maggie's death, John managed on his own. He scooted between his homes in Montecito. Montecito's adjacent to Santa Barbara, if that helps you, and Paris. And senility seemed to set in quickly. He traveled to New York to attend an award presentation, and after checking into his hotel, forgot why he was in New York and failed to attend the event. Now, Ricardo Montalban and his wife Georgiana, who's Loretta's sister, attended the affair, and concerned about John's no-show, checked on him later that evening. Anyway, back in Montecito, one of John's neighbors, a French woman who had been married 5 times, took an interest in John. However, after keeping an eye on him for a couple months, she tired of the mission and decided he needed to be placed in assisted living. She wasn't after his money. She had plenty of her own. One of her husbands had been a Mr. Hill of Hill's Brothers Coffee. But she did decide that John's will needed to be changed so that the designee would be one of her favorite charities. Upon learning of Loretta's financial involvement in John's affair, the Frenchwoman's lawyer sent Loretta a form to sign, surrendering her role as financial conservator. Loretta, with her own lawyer in tow, met with the opposing attorney in Montecito, and she said, "This is exactly the kind of thing that Maggie feared. You put John in a home and he won't last 2 months." She refused to cooperate. Her stand was admirable, but here she was at 79 years old, responsible for an 83-year-old male who was slipping quickly into senility. Loretta brought John to her home, and he was happy to leave Montecito because there were just too many memories of his wife there. Now, Loretta's son Chris and daughter-in-law Linda traveled with their work, and Loretta decided to use their home in Palm Springs, thinking that the desert sun would be good for John. After spending several weeks and seeing John's positive response, Loretta decided they should just buy a home there. For one thing, it would provide a solution of what to do with John's furniture. Products of Gladys Belzer, that's Loretta's mother, who was a renowned decorator. After 6 months of keeping her books, his books, and their books, Loretta decided that they should just marry to simplify the arrangement. I was visiting with Loretta in her Beverly Hills kitchen the night before their quiet wedding was to occur. John Louis shuffled in and asked, "Now, what day are we getting married?" Loretta replied, "Tomorrow, dear." And then looked at me as if to say, "Look what I'm getting myself into." I thought to myself, well, this time around, it's not about you. Now, let me add a note here. During her career, Loretta had made so much money for so many people that were around her. Agents, publicists, producers, that they were all willing to be yes people. And it was easy for Loretta to live in a world that really was all about her. Now, Loretta and John's home in Palm Springs looked like something where the Jetsons, the animated sitcom family from the 60s, might have lived. A single-story structure, the exterior looked like a white stucco spaceship. The main interior featured a huge circular living room, off of which there was a formal dining alcove and another alcove that served as a den. A crescent-shaped swimming pool circled outside the rear. There was a service wing with kitchen and servants' quarters, and a bedroom wing with two-bedroom suites. Loretta assumed the larger suite and decided to have the shower removed to be replaced with her makeup station. Her rationale was, I don't take showers. I thought that I did keep to myself, you're 80 years old. You're not going to live forever, and the next people to buy this house will want a shower. But it was her house. The Palm Springs house presented a challenge. Her mother had always assumed decorating responsibilities in every home Loretta lived in. So all Loretta had to do was move in. One afternoon, Loretta was in an anxious mood regarding some decorating decision, and she recognized that she was becoming irritable. She said to me, I hope I don't boot this thing. I knew what she meant. She saw this opportunity, taking care of Jean, as something God-given, and she didn't want to blow it by being cross towards him. Loretta was having trouble finding the fabric to recover John's loose-like chairs, which would be arranged by the fireplace in the living room. She consulted upholsterers, but with no luck. Finally, one day, I was in the car with Loretta and Jean, and she was lamenting her lack of success in finding that fabric. John pointed to a Joanne's fabric store and told her to pull in. We weren't in the store 5 minutes when John selected a fabric that satisfied Loretta. But amazingly, it was the intended underside of the fabric he chose. John hadn't lost his touch. I learned about designing clothes mainly from Loretta. He explained to me how John approached his work. For a film, he would begin by reading the scene to understand the mood of that scene. The descriptive, understand the mood of that scene. Then he reviewed a large selection of fabrics. When he found one he liked, the way it felt and draped in his hand propelled the sketch for the design. Now, I would have thought that the design came first, but no, it was the feel of the fabric. Now, Sean was a soft-spoken, gentle soul. He never had a bad thing to say about anyone, no matter how hard I tried to get him to gossip about the famous women he dressed. And the only time he took the bait was when Katharine Hepburn's name came up. She provoked him by dictating what he should design and how. She had no interest in hearing his ideas. To contact me, visit my website at edwardjfunk.wordpress.com. Thank you so much for listening.